All emotional stress is when we are not allowed to express ourselves authentically in the moment. We repress it, and then we have the somatic experience of I am stressed. We go into sympathetic mode and we're stressed. But how many times we do that in our lives? There's chemical stress, like the environmental toxins. There's physical stress, like over-exercising, overeating, undereating. But this emotional stress, no one was talking about it in a sense of what really is stress.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Heal with Kelly podcast. I am here today with a dear friend, Dr. Christian Gonzalez. How lucky. What a great job I have that I get to just hang out and speak to my friends. For those of you who do not know Dr. G, as he's known, I'm going to read a little bit about him. Dr. Christian Gonzalez is a pioneering naturopathic doctor, founder of ELM, the Emotional Liberation Method, co-founder of the Integrative Psychology Institute, and host of the Heal Thyself podcast. With over a decade of experience, Dr. Gonzalez is a leader in integrative healing, specializing in the connection between unresolved trauma, the nervous system, fascia, and cellular health. We're going to get into all the wonderful things you do, but thank you for coming.
Look, Mama, I made it. I'm on the Heal podcast with Kelly. Now I know I've done something right in my life.
You've arrived.
I've arrived.
You've arrived. And you're moving to Manhattan Beach.
I love it here. What have I been missing?
I know.
I've only been on like the main strip. There's side roads and there's nature and there's beautiful schools and the sun is here, not so gloomy like it is in Venice.
That's right. Speaking of sun, you've got a nice glow here. You got a nice tan.
This is the Leo is coming out. The Leo and the sun and the summer and the vitamin D and life. I thrive in the summer.
Yeah.
Winter, you won't see me for a while.
Yeah. I'm the same. I'm sun charged for sure. So you were like big time into food and everything on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I kind of got familiar with you and gave such great tips. And then recently, I don't know how recently, I want to hear your story of like how you kind of really got invested and interested in somatics and the emotional and the trauma side of healing. Yeah.
On the surface, it seems like an abrupt change, but you're right. I came onto social media speaking about food and I was a plant-based vegan doctor and all of the benefits of plant-based food. And it is sort of like the Trojan horse portal into, okay, health and wellness, right? Like, what should I eat? People always think about their plate. People say, I want to get healthy. What do? They eat healthier, right? It's the first thing they do, and maybe exercise. And so that brought in a lot of people's interest because I was talking about food in a way that not a lot of people were. I was talking about combinations. What makes turmeric more effective, more absorbable? What makes broccoli and cauliflower more absorbable? Well, there's combinations of foods that really help. And that was really amazing. But I'm a firm believer of doing things in the authentic expression of which is coming up at the moment. And I love human design. I'm a manifesting generator. That means I like spinning a bunch of plates and changing course all the time. Moving into somatics was a natural progression, maybe not to everyone else, but definitely to me. It was natural in a sense of I had my training in oncology. I work with a lot of people who had cancer. I worked in a hospital. I've seen thousands of people with cancer, and my specialty was in breast cancer. So when I left my residency and I moved to the Bay Area, I was working in Silicon Valley in a small little clinic, seeing tons of women with breast cancer and working alternatively, not as a alternative, do this and not that. It was more of an integrative approach. How does food, exercise, supplements, and all the other things that are evidence-based really helping cancer? I really wish cancer hospitals had all of this information and did it that way. But regardless, food was a really potent piece. A lot of people were doing better with their therapies with food. But there was two giant missing pieces that I wasn't looking at. And I don't think that people in cancer look at. And it branched out from cancer into all disease, especially chronic disease. It was the environmental toxin exposure, and it was stress. But stress was so ambiguous at the time. So why would I want to talk about stress if I say, just do stress relieving things? People are like, okay, well, what is that? Meditating maybe? It was too general. But there was a lot of meat and potatoes in environmental medicine. So I shifted gears and moved into environmental medicine. And that was all of a sudden, I was talking about BPA and formaldehyde and PFAS. No one was talking about that. Not on social media. And then that's when my whole brand and education piece started really lifting up to the surface, the podcast grew because people wanted to really know. I loved it too for a while. And then came the piece where I go, am I just spreading fear? Like I asked myself, I'm like, this is empowerment. But then everyone is like, well, what type of mattress do I get? What type of rug do I get? What type of blinds do I get?
Invisible toxins are
Invisible
everywhere.
toxins are everywhere, right? And I love that you have air purifiers in your house. We have that awareness. A lot of people don't. And I promise you, environmental toxins are a major piece of chronic diseases. And I still talk about it, but in a more empowering way. But back to that stress piece. The stress piece was blowing my mind that why isn't anyone talking about stress from a nervous system standpoint? We just say stress as some ambiguous term. And then it hit me in this moment. And in this process of my little existential crisis that I had a few years ago, I said, okay, people are aware of environmental toxins, but they're not aware of really the stress component. And then it hit me in one moment. And I said, what is stress? People come home and they say, honey, I am stressed. And then she goes, okay, well, maybe go for a walk. And he goes, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. Never really knowing what stress was. What's the reason? What's the somatic experience of I am stressed? Well, if you rewind and go back to the moment that stress happened in this figurative example, maybe that guy is at work and his boss talks to him, but really disrespectfully, like really puts him down. And then all of a sudden he has this somatic experience of stress. But then it hit me and I said, wait a minute. Stress is ultimately, at least on the emotional level, all emotional stress is when we are not allowed to express ourselves authentically in the moment. We repress it, and then we have this somatic experience of I am stressed. We go into sympathetic mode and we're stressed. But how many times we do that in our lives? There's chemical stress, like the environmental toxins. There's physical stress, like overexercising, overeating, undereating. But this emotional stress, no one was talking about it in a sense of what really is stress. I went down that road. I put the car on 90 miles per hour and I went really fast. And I learned everything there is to know about somatics. I looked under every stone. I took every class, every course. And then I realized, holy moly, all of these chronic diseases, every disease on some level is being influenced by the nervous system. Chronic diseases on a big level. Mm-hmm. Because the nervous system sponsors everything, hormones, immune system, brain, every organ is influenced by the nervous system. So then you start thinking to yourself, you say, okay, wait a minute. If the nervous system is so important, we have to reverse engineer it and start with the nervous system. Even before exercise, even before food, definitely before the environmental toxins. The better your nervous system, the more resilient you are to all of those things, even if it's a crappy diet. Holy moly, why aren't we talking about this in medicine? That's when I started to see physical health miracles in these somatic practices. We're talking about infertility, woman getting pregnant. We're talking about gut issues. We're talking about thyroid issues. We're talking about chronic pain that people have had since they were teenagers. As adults, I'm thinking of this 56-year-old man, gone in one session because it was nervous system centric. And you know what I'm talking about. So that's what I got to say.
That's amazing. Yes. And I am a projector, so I do things a little differently. You're like, shift gears and driving the car 90 miles an hour. I'm doing that self-experimentation, right? I'm like, I think it's like investigative martyr or whatever. It's like I'm always investigating and trying it on myself so that I could share. And it seems silly. And I've done somatic work. I've done somatic release work, but I've never focused on it for my own healing. And that's when I was connected to you a few months ago. And we did this amazing 3-month container. And I was like, oh my God, at 46, I've been in the healing world since, 2015, since I started making Heal. So however long ago, 10 years. And I'm just now investigating for my personal journey, deep somatic work. And so I don't know, it's just it really kind of is where people should start.
Yeah.
It's the foundation of everything. It's how our nervous system is wired. And like you said, I've never heard anyone say it's the stress that we're experiencing is because we're not expressing our authenticity and our authentic emotions in real time. So it's it's almost like it's not even stress, it's repression.
It's repression. It's a downstream experience of the repression.
Yeah.
Like if I'm driving on the highway and someone goes to cut me off, there's a stress response, but it's momentary, right? Because I pull my car away and I go, oh my God, what the hell? And then everything's fine after. My heart's beating and I should be good. It should move through me. But we go through life, especially in childhood, with these signals that there are parts of us that are not allowed to be expressed. They're not safe to be expressed. And that's sponsored by the house we live in, the relationship between mom and dad, or the experience of just mom or the experience of just dad, mostly in the household, sometimes in schools and sometimes in partners as we get older. But the truth is, so many of these signals start early on. So identity is a huge piece. And this is why we need to come back to the body, because the identity is formed from the experience of the body. For example, when a child grows up in a household where the father is verbally abusive to the mother, and the mother really shuts down and she gets really quiet and doesn't speak up for herself, that child's going to compensate in some way. It has to. It's going to know for sure that anger is not an allowable expression in the household, because look how destructive it is. And I love my mom, right? But look at her shutting down. And look at that. That child can respond in different ways. We don't know why. Maybe it's a constitution. Maybe it's just like how they're wired. Some children will run away and go to their room and study. Some children will go to the refrigerator and eat. Some children will be really explosive and rageful and rebellious and angry. Some children will be people pleasers, right? But these are all compensations to the same exact signal. I'm not allowed to express a part of me because that part of me is unlovable or unsafe in the household. Well, then we don't realize this, but we do that with many emotions. And we have many compensations to many emotions. And so these compensations become part of our identity. So the child that becomes a people pleaser becomes really good at people pleasing. And now it happens outside of the house. It happens in school. And then it happens in sports. And then it happens in their first relationship. And everyone says, oh, he or she is the nicest person in the world. I can depend on them. Well, you can depend on them because they keep abandoning themselves. But what's happening is as they get older, they don't realize that these compensations become their identity. And when it becomes your identity, then who are you without that? And this is the deeper spiritual question, is who are you without that compensation? Because it's blended into who you are. And so this work is not only about bringing you back to witness those deep repressed parts of you, but then it's ultimately healing the identity. Who are you without the people pleasing? Who are you when you don't abandon yourself? Who are you in the integrity of who you are? Well, ironically, it's much more authentic.
Yeah.
Ironically, it's much more in your power. And ironically, it's much more physically healthy.
Yeah.
Can't lie to your body.
Right. Oh my gosh. And as you're talking, it's like we all go through these like healing moments, and when you're in therapy and you intellectually get these things and you try to do them, like I want to stop people pleasing, and I realized at 40 that I abandoned myself. But when you start to change, you're still wired as if you're that little girl or that little boy, and you're wired that way because it was unsafe to express yourself, or you had to learn to people please. Otherwise, if you pissed off dad, it was scary and you were unsafe. So that same fear, that same unsafe comes up as an adult, even though it's irrational and doesn't make sense anymore. That's the way your system is wired. So for you to start to do things differently than how identity was wired, and heal that people pleasing or hypervigilance or whatever your compensation was, it is literally terrifying. You think you're going to die in moments, and it's so irrational. That's why getting into the body and the nervous system through somatic healing is so important, because you can't do it in your head, because that's only 5% of the power. And it's like, your body thinks it's unsafe. Your body still thinks it's 6 years old.
Yeah. This is something that is missing in therapy. And we're talking about upstream manifestations that we're trying to work with on the level of the upstream experience. And that's the head. That's the ego. That's the stories. People oftentimes are kind of surprised when I say, your body doesn't care about your trauma, because it doesn't. It only cares about if you're holding in or allowing it to express. That's it. Doesn't care about the details, doesn't care about the stories around it, the scents, the flavors, nothing around it. It only cares if you're allowing yourself to fully express the rage, the fear, the guilt, the shame, the joy, the love, all the parts of you, the sadness, all the parts of you. And if you don't, your body's like, okay, because the ego's in charge, at least for a long time. But here's the thing, and this is the part where it gets a little woo-woo. We start attracting people, places, things, situations, and circumstances of that like frequency. So for example, if I'm a people pleaser, back to that example, if you're a people pleaser and you're living most of your life and people go, that's the best person, they're so dependable and they're so sweet and oh, I just love working. But all this crappy stuff always happens in their life. They always have angry people in their life. They always have angry situations. I always feel bad. They have the worst quote unquote luck. I want you all to think about viewing and listening. I want you to all think about that person who maybe has all the things going wrong in their life. That's an expression of the internal repression. If that person is holding in a bunch of anger, here's the woo-woo part, we attract people who are angry. We attract places that up in us. Exactly. So the body's trying to heal, to express.
We're trying to agitate what you've repressed.
Exactly. So imagine that person who has the tire blowout on the way to an interview, and they go, okay, everything will be fine. It's okay. It's a crappy day, but life goes on, and they spiritual bypass or whatever it is. When in reality, the experience, the body, the soul was calling for you to rage, to let it out. And this is something I've seen in thousands of patients, is that they're attracting that which where they are. Right? Can you agree that in whatever your emotions were coming, you felt those emotions every other day, even outside of the work that we were doing?
And we'll get into that in a second. I just want to if we keep bypassing and enabling the people pleaser and not expressing, if we keep repressing, that's when our body is going to start to express in other ways. It's going to express for us, whether it's in a skin rash or inflammation and chronic pain or some sort of dis-ease, because you're not moving that energy through the healthy expression of emotion, and the body doesn't know what to do with that energy, and so it repels it in its way of dis-ease, right?
Well, we'll talk about the mechanism right now. So the emotions are held in the fascia. The fascia is this integrative spiderweb network from head to toe, toe to head. It doesn't miss anything in our body. In medicine, we go, the fascia is great at keeping our bones and muscles together and helping distribute vibrational forces so we don't break stuff. It works. It keeps us fluid. It keeps us from being a puddle of skin and bones. And there's a really sublime piece to fascia. And that's our electrical network, electromagnetic network of frequency that moves through our body. It is the roadway of where I say the soul works, right through our fascia. And traditional Chinese medicine was right. 5,000 plus years ago, they have meridians mapped out. Where does it go? It's not through the blood vessels. It's not through the lymphatic system. It's not through the bones. It's not through the muscle. It's through the fascia. And when we start giving reverence for fascia as one of the most important tissues in medicine, we'll start to see all of this. The fascia has the second most sensory receptors to anything other than the skin. So the fascia is always sensing, but it's sensing faster than you can consciously know. For example, if you and I are walking in the street and someone passes us and I smell a scent and my stomach gets really tense and protected, like someone's going to punch me in the stomach. Well, that scent may be connected to a bully from high school who punched me in the stomach, or a bully who I was afraid of and fear was being repressed or anger was being repressed, couldn't express it in my stomach. I may never realize that that scent was creating this somatic experience of the fascia tightening in my system. Or if I have somatic awareness, I might go, ooh, that scent triggered something in my belly because I feel my belly tighten. But regardless, the fascia is protecting you before you even know it. So anytime we go, oh, and this is how disconnected we are with our body. I don't know, my neck's just been in pain all day. Well, maybe you nicked your neck during tennis or working out, or maybe there was a mental emotional trigger that created the fascia from being liberated and contracting. But here's where the disease happens. The fascia is connected directly to the emotional centers in your brain. Parts of the limbic system are straight connected to the fascia. There's neurons that go right to it. That's important because there's an emotional component to how the body reacts. Like I just said, the scent. And the more that tract is disrupted, the fascia is in a holding pattern of contraction, the more dysregulated that network or communication is, the more fear is connected. And what happens is over time, inflammation begins in that. Inflammation, dehydration, the cells become distorted. It becomes problematic because the holding pattern creates an inflammatory pattern. Well, inflammation is going to drive disease. So if you're holding in anger and fear in your belly, what do you think the fascia of the intestines, what's happening there, right? What about the fascia around the organs of digestion? And now you're presenting with IBS or SIBO or constipation. I don't know why. Well, a lot of it, if it's mental, emotional, is right through the fascia of the gut. If it's around the whole body, then it manifests disease all over, from pain to physiological issues. And this is why the fascia is so important, because repressed emotions are the thing that's creating that holding pattern more than anything. Tattoos and injuries, yes, but those holding patterns are mostly coming from mental, emotional repression.
In hindsight, because you worked with so many breast cancer patients, and I feel there's such a deep emotional root in cancer as well. Among other things, it's very complex and multifaceted. But have you gone back and kind of assessed the profile of the women that you presented with breast cancer? And is there like some emotional patterns you saw?
Yeah. Gabor Mate spoke a little bit about this when the body says no. He spoke about autoimmune disease and cancer. And I agree with what he said. Clinically, I've seen that there is a commonality to people with cancer. I've seen a lot of women, so I can speak for a lot of women. With that said, because it's multifactorial, there's different pieces. I would say that and environmental exposures are one of the biggest drivers for cancer. And we know in the evidence, smoking, drinking, lack of exercise, obesity, yes, they all play a major role. But what are we not talking about? Well, there is evidence behind the environmental stuff and the stress. Well, again, this is what we say in medicine for cancer. Stress causes cancer, or stress drives cancer. Well, what is stress? Well, we spoke about that. There is a profile. And this profile is people who cannot express their anger healthily, people pleasers, people who abandon themselves continuously for others. It's also people who have their identity around serving others versus serving themselves and taking care of themselves. Mm-hmm. So their purpose is, they derive purpose. Like, let's say, for example, a mother, wonderful mother, completely abandons everything that she wants in her life, wants, needs, desires for her children and her family. That's honorable on the surface. But in somatics, that's not honorable at all. In somatics, that mother needs to connect with her. What is her purpose? Well, her kids can be a purpose, but what else do you want to create in this world? Did you always want to basket weave? Why have you abandoned basket weaving? Right? Did you always want to do pottery? Why have you abandoned that? The balance somatically is, in this archetype, the mother who's bringing in the things in her life that bring her personal joy, not abandoning herself for her family, but also showing up for her family, but not identifying with the role that this is what it means to be a mother. What it means to be a mother is to be in the integrity and authenticity of what is rooted for her and her own soul's experience, while filling up her whole cup and overflowing that cup to the family. A lot of mothers show up with breast cancer, and these are the mothers who've held in their anger, who've lived with resentment because they gave up so much of themselves, and that's so honorable and lovable, but never took the time to go, what do I want? Mm-hmm. What do I need? What is important for me? They do that maybe when the kids go to college.
Yeah, because society has taught us that mothers...
Society has taught, exactly. Yeah. And we're speaking about mothers because my mother died of breast cancer. Mm. I also noticed, and this Gabor Mate didn't speak about, but I also noticed there was a sexual shame piece. There was a lot of, and I say this with empathy and love and compassion and understanding, there's a big religious wound, especially in the women that I saw. And I can't say that this is, if you have this, you're going to have cancer. Please don't take this as anecdotal evidence. But there's a religious wound in the sense of, I'm not allowed to express my sexuality and femininity in a healthy way. And anything around sex and sexuality is to be shamed. It's shameful. I can't hear set words about sexuality. I can't hear organs because I cringe inside. There's a lack of sexual liberation, and we'll talk about what that means, but lack of sexual liberation and expression, that femininity, that holds them back and represses so much in their womb. The womb connected to so many of the hormones. So look, I would say really the profile of cancer is the people pleasing, the abandoning yourself, the disconnection for purpose. I'm scared to disappoint other people. That's a big energy around cancer for sure. Anger is a big one. But I think there's a shame piece that no one's investigating too.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So we work together. And I mean, why did I come to you?
How do we get connected
We
here?
eventually got to, obviously I went through separation. House burned down. Like I'd gone through all these things and I was like, God, I'm doing okay. Like, am I spiritual bypassing really? Like, and I've done so much work and and everyone's like, you're navigating with such grace. But I knew, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I should dig deeper and see what's really going on under the hood. And also I still know that there's like residual shame around sexuality just because of religion. And, I kind of just wanted to really feel the full spectrum of emotions. And sometimes I find it, because of all of my compensations, sometimes I don't even know how to feel. Like I'm wanting to learn how to feel. We need to relearn how to feel, because we have been, because of our upbringing and because of society and good girls, girls are supposed to be good and polite and abandon themselves for, the greater good. And men are not supposed to cry. All these things have seeped in. So where we really repress our emotions and then we forget to feel. And so I think I was seeking to work with you to kind of just unleash my authentic, it was to heal the masculine wound. And sorry, I'm speaking out loud and figuring out where this came from. And then to really unleash my divine feminine, because I've overcompensated my whole life by being more in my masculine and warrioring through life. And I want to soften and really be potent and powerful in my femininity. And so I think I sought out working with you to come into balance in that way. And it's just so interesting because even still, we've worked together, we've unleashed so much, and I think there's been an unraveling since we started work together in the most beautiful way. You've unlocked some stuff, some challenges, and now I find my physical system is actually going through a full upgrade and recalibration in a very painful way. That's we just realized today is manifesting and expressing as a Lyme flare up. But it's really you've kind of, you and I were able to access some of this repression and started pulling the thread. And now the ball of yarn is unraveling in a kind of, intense way, but in the most beautiful way. And then I literally, everything that's followed is I went on this spiritual retreat that was all about growing up. And just everything is setting up. You have to pull the thread and unravel a little bit in order to rebuild the system from the ground up and really grow into the autonomous, sovereign being adult that wants to show up in the world the way you want to show up, not the way you were programmed out of survival.
The body knows that too. The body knows when you're showing up out of the integrity of what your soul wants to express.
Yes.
And so much of how we show up is just parts of us that got us love from mom, from dad, from teacher, from first boyfriend or girlfriend, from coach. And it's the culmination of what makes you most lovable without ever asking ourselves what makes us most authentic. Forget lovable, right? Because all of that is false, right? It's just in that moment, the perspective that we had that got us the most love. But we've outgrown people, right? And our parents have grown older and they themselves have changed too. And we're left at this age as we grow up as an adults and then we become parents and we become grandparents. we're left with like, well, what is true for me? And I think that's the most important question that someone can ask themselves before they die. What is true for me, right? Because if you're living your life as the expression of so many, I'm lovable as this person, culmination, and that's called your identity, and you call it Christian or Kelly, then we're abandoning our soul. And guess what? When we abandon our soul, it will talk to us through symptoms, the physical symptoms and the mental health symptoms. And so we take these symptoms and we go to a doctor and we go, how do I fix this? Right? And they go, okay, here's this drug, or here's this.
They're going to look at the physical, the mechanistic
supplement. They're going to look at the, because that's how we're taught in medicine.
Yeah.
But a therapist will try to look at the psychoanalysis, right? What's the psycho? What's the psyche saying? But we're missing the origin story. And the origin story is always unequivocally in the body. That's when the ball of yarn starts unrolling. That's when things get messy. Why is it messy? Because we're literally changing who we are on the outside world. We're going from somatic to psyche to physical. Somatic, psyche to physical. And we are shaking up the somatic, so all that dust and dirt starts moving around. And then guess what? The psyche goes, whoa, who am I? And I'm all of a sudden experiencing all of these challenging things. And then the physical may have flare-ups, but this is the growth.
Yeah.
This is what happens, because when it settles, you're in this new version of you, who Kelly is, way beyond that which you came to believe yourself to be through the years of life.
Yeah. It's so wild. Just to wrap that up, it's like I'm in that physical part right now. And it all makes so much sense, but it's like I haven't said, it's like it's very clear to me that this is like a spiritual initiation of like up leveling. So, but I've been presenting as sicker than I've ever been in my life, where like Riley is like, what is going on? My people that work with me are like, I've never seen you like this. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. I just know whether it's a virus or, and now we figured out it's a Lyme flare up, you know, triggered by a UTI, like wiped out my system. Everything came crashing down. But I have the awareness, because I'm so in tune with my body, that this is the physical journey I need to take in order to purge energetically, fascially, and everything to reset the system and reboot the system. And it's purging just also unaligned with this new frequency as we're doing the healing somatically. It's going to purge and shift things in the physical, probably in a pretty disruptive, maybe painful way, because there's going to be things in your body that are no longer aligned with that frequency, and they're going to have to move out. The thing I want to crack with you today is safety, because like I said, like once we have this awareness for people listening, it's like everybody wants to be their authentic self and their authentic expression. The reason we hold back is because we feel like it's unsafe to do so.
Yeah.
And it's unsafe to make a change in career that we feel like we're going to disappoint our parents, even though we're 50 years old. Unsafe to, you know, put our needs first because we're afraid that our kid's going to be traumatized. We're afraid to speak up in our marriage because we're going to be abandoned or cheated on or whatever. It's like, how do we find, what I'm working on is, how do I find so much safety in my body? There's things in the world that we cannot predict. There's wars happening. There's people doing crazy things. Like, you know, shit can go down at any moment that our lives could be over. But how do we find safety in to just be our authentic selves?
The safety piece is one of two ingredients to have really deep healing. I'm a firm believer that in co-regulation, that's when the deepest healing happens. We actually need another to heal. Okay. We work with ourselves and we can only go so far. But how does trauma happen? It doesn't happen because you're just sitting and like closing your eyes and meditating. It happens because something happens to you or for you, for lack of better terms, right? Something happens through someone else. I traumatized you. And then we work together and then you're healed, right? People traumatize, people heal. It's a relational experience. And this is why we need each other. It's relativity. It's the experience of who am I in relation to? Well, when you meet someone who can hold space for you, and doesn't have to be a somatic healer, it can be a lovely partner who's done the work himself. When you meet someone who can hold that space, they provide and lend their nervous system to you so you can go through that experience in safety to go into the body and experience who you are. Or at the very least, to speak up for yourself in a safe container. To go back to safety, safety is the first ingredient to start healing. Actually, before that is the want to heal.
Mm-hmm.
You have to want to heal.
Yeah.
And people don't want to hear that. Some people don't want to heal. Sometimes there's more value in being sick than there is in being healthy. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to be real with yourself. But the safety piece right after that is, okay, how do I find safety? Well, what is safety? Safety, in the somatic sense, is the ability to go into your body and actually allow for it to process. Because for viewers and listeners out there, you're not doing anything. You're providing your awareness in the body to be with your body so the body at some point can do what it's been trying to do, and that's heal. Okay? And so safety means I can go into my body and I can feel deeply and just be with it without trying to figure out when did it happen, why did it happen, who am I, what am I going to do, what am I going to do later, all the things that come up with the ego trying to protect us. Can I be with the tension in my belly right now? And if I close my eyes and I learn that interoception piece, the connection between the brain and the body, and I can be with that tension in my belly fully, can I be with it without being scared of what's there? And can I be with it without trying to go, oh, what's the story behind this? We'd love to do that. Can I just be with my belly and go, I'm here with you. That's it. And tomorrow I'm going to visit you again. And I'm going to see if you're there. Ooh, you're there again. I'm here with you. And the next day, I'm going to keep doing it consistently. And I'm going to build that muscle like I go to the gym. So my belly, my body, and the fascia, and the brain all know I'm ready to allow in safety. Safety is the ability to witness as an observer without judgment what's happening in your body. That's it. And in that safety, something incredible happens. The body goes, oh, you're here for the 25th day. You're here for the 35th day. You're still visiting me. You're still knocking on the door. Okay, am I safe to process? And when you build that interoception, the body begins to process. That's how the healing begins. Now, it's accelerated when you're with someone who's already safe. For the viewers and listeners out there, you ever have a partner where they feel so grounded, so unconditionally loving, so accepting of all parts of you, and you've grown in that relationship more than anything? And it's because you're not afraid to speak up. You're not afraid to be messy. You're not afraid to be light. You can be all of you. And in that space, the container that is set by your partner's nervous system, it completely changes who you are over the years. I am in a relationship like that and I'm happy. But I've seen it in other relationships.
Yeah, but look at all the work you've done. Are there more yous out there?
Yeah, but it's which brings a lot of the conversation around men. I've been doing a lot of men's work lately, and it's because men need this. Men don't know how to connect to their heart. Shout out to the men who do, and shout out to the fathers who naturally have done that. Whether they've done the work or they've had healthy family systems, and they've had fathers and a generation of fathers who are all loving and connected to their heart. Speaking for most men, we abandon our heart. And it's the biggest wound that men have. I think the biggest wound that women have is the abandonment of the power in their womb. The biggest real abandonment is our heart as men. And also the women who are hypermasculine, right? Who are really in their masculine, they've done the same thing. So I'm just speaking generally about men. But we didn't always have that. We weren't always like that. When we were kids, we had a heart. We expressed with our heart. We hugged people. We weren't afraid to hug. We weren't afraid to cry. We weren't afraid to jump on the bed for joy. We weren't afraid to be all of us. And then at some point, we cried and someone said, hey, no, you're a big boy. And at some point, this isn't how little boys act. You're growing up, or you're the man of the house, or whatever is said. What do you think those signals tell us in our connection to the heart? It's not safe to express our heart. So what happens? We have men who all of a sudden compensate and they go to their head and they start performing. They start doing, performing with work or with school, or they maybe start getting into drugs, right? And I always think about this. There's two people. There's a billionaire compensator because he's disconnected with his heart, and then his brother who's a homeless person who's disconnected from his heart, right? It's the same. it's the same mechanism. It's just a compensation that has changed.
Mm-hmm.
So what the heck is going on? But when a man is connected to his heart, he raises a family of children who are connected to their heart. When a man is in relationship and he's connected to his heart, he allows the woman the felt sense, the experience that I can be all of me and this man won't abandon me. Why do women hold in so many parts of them in relationship? Is because they don't want to get too dirty or too messy or too crazy.
Yeah.
But they don't want to be too light and bright because they'll be abandoned. Mm-hmm. That's a story in their system.
Yeah.
For some reason that happened.
It's exhausting to manage all that.
It's exhausting. But ironically, sometimes it's true. What happens when the man's disconnected from his heart and he sees that from his head? Oh, there's just too much for me. I can't handle this. Because she's mirroring this depth of emotion that he hasn't seen for himself.
Trying to agitate it out of him.
See, that's it. The frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, men need this work to provide safety in relationship. But really, it's about, if you go to a somatic practitioner, you have to feel him or her. Does this person feel safe? Do they feel like they have a body and they're connected to it? Mm-hmm. Because they're lending their nervous system in this work to you. And ultimately providing safety and co-regulation for you to go through your process.
So do you call it ELM or ELM? Emotional Liberation Method.
Yeah, it's the method that I created, but I think about the elm tree. And I look at research of this. This is before the ChatGPT days, right? It probably would have helped me with a better name.
Yeah, no, I love elm.
But elm trees in history, in stories, a lot of spiritual changes or growth happen in these tales of different characters sitting by an elm tree and like meditating like Buddha or working and doing whatever it is, like working on themselves. Elm tree is very representative of spiritual and emotional growth. It's really cool.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm just saying, because when we were working in our 3-month container and I was like, going into some sort of circumstance that got me a little anxious or whatever, you would have me tune into where that was presenting in my body. Tightness in chest, tightness in belly, observe, and then you would also work with sound. So can you talk a little bit about how, these simple practices start to create safety in your body, and we can tap in and shift our state by observing, being with, and then implementing our own kind of toning.
Yeah. The fascia, where that's holding in the emotions, attuned to sound. But I say it from like just the emotional standpoint. I tell people, hey, look, your emotions, when they're floating around and activated and wanting to move and express and integrate to the whole, back to you, it needs sound. It's not going to move without sound. And this is something that somatic practices are still missing. Taken a lot of somatic courses, learned a lot of somatic stuff. And this is something that I started implementing into the work. Because a lot of the somatic practices utilize breath work, but not sound. But I'm like, well, I see, and this is exactly the moment when it hit me. It was 2021. I was in bed and I woke up at like 4 a.m. It was pitch black. And I woke up to my body contorting. And I go, oh, am I having a seizure? But it wasn't characteristic of a seizure because I wasn't shaking like it. So I knew immediately, I go, okay, my body is moving something. And I actually felt, I have a very, very sensitive system. I can feel subtleties. And I felt that whatever was in my belly at the time was moving and ascending up the belly and wrapping around my back and wrapping around my chest. It was like a snake. And it was stuck in my throat. And I can feel it. It was like wanting to come out, but it was stuck. Why was it stuck? Is because I was disconnected from my true voice, first of all. I wasn't speaking from my belly. I was speaking from my upper chest, right? So I was all the way up here instead of being down here. And so my throat learned over the years to be really closed. It was a bottleneck. And I'm going through this process and shaking and I'm sweating and I hear the word sound. I hear it, just sound. So then as soon as I heard it, I opened my mouth and made the sound that was most resonant to that experience. And all of it moved, all of it. It moved. And it was like 20 minutes of energy vomiting. It just kept moving and it was just waiting for that sound. And then that's when I was already starting to do this practice. So I go, wait a minute. But let me start doing this with my clients. Exploded. The experiences exploded. Things changed completely in the physical and mental realm. I go, holy shit, these people just needed sound. I'm here doing breath work, but it wasn't breath work. It was that just moved the stuff. The sound. We got to come back to our voice, our truth.
It's so fun. I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Because like, I'd be doing it and you'd want me to practice these things and it's like dropping like into the belly and so like,
Yeah, there you go.
and,
Here's that voice. Yeah.
and Riley, like I had this healer come over last weekend to work on a few friends. She's really good with trauma. She's amazing energy healer. And she's like, are you going to be doing, she's like,
oh, you were making the sound?
I wasn't. She asked me because she knew I'd
She
worked
knew
with
you were
you
a sound,
for 3 months doing the sound.
yeah.
And she's like rolling her eyes like going, oh my God, Mom, you're crazy doing this sound. It's so funny.
It's really potent. If you think about it, how many times as children were we told to be quiet? How many times, this is a huge wound, how many times were people singing and they were told that they don't have a good voice? Right? A lot of people, I know that resonated with a lot of people when I said that. And what do you think that does to the fascia around the throat?
Tenses
it up.
Yeah, closes up out of fear.
Right? What about when you see your mom not speak up for herself or your dad not speak up for himself or no one speak up in your family for anyone's self? What happens in the fascia of the throat? It tenses, gets constricted. Then we see people speaking from their upper chest, right? And you can hear, I can immediately hear where people are in their voice because I've done this for so long. And it really pains me when I hear people talking from their upper chest because I know how much is in their belly. It's their whole consciousness pulling away from their belly and going, no. There's too much. The ego says, no, too much in the belly. And ultimately I can sense what emotion people are holding in. And those people are really holding in a lot of anger and fear. Regardless, the voice, one of the best ways, and this is practical stuff for you to do at home, everyone, is just learn how to relax your belly. Like we suck in our belly for society and for whatever we're told, vanity, right? But like relax the belly and just start making sounds from your belly, vibrating, reverberating it up the chest and up the throat, and start practicing what it sounds like. A lot of people cough when they're doing these sessions. And it's because the whole nervous system, the nerves around the throat, it's going, what's happening? This is too much. But the system, it opens up and you can hear the moment. It's in a session, you can hear when it cracks open. And ultimately when it cracks, it's funny, when it cracks open, all of a sudden, about a few seconds later, all this emotion starts moving because the voice, the bottleneck cracks open and it allows all that energy that was stuck in the fascia to move.
Yeah. Which I think is so helpful because we need these practical hacks, which, this vocal exercises to move emotion because I literally don't know how to move it sometimes. I know it's there underlying. Like I remember this so vividly. It was like 2.5 weeks ago. It was like middle of this spiritual retreat I was on and I was feeling all these physical symptoms, which I didn't realize was Lyme flare up at the time. And I had not gotten like for everything the intensity of what I had gone through for the 2 weeks prior leading up to that, the physical pain, the just all of it, and the, managing life among that, I was like, surely I just want to cry, but I don't even feel the tears anywhere near. And then like, I left you a voice note and just in the connection of the frequency that you hold, even over texts and 60 miles away or whatever, I started crying.
Right.
Because whatever that entrainment was or whatever that safety that we've shared, it just came up out of nowhere. So what I'm saying is if we're in our conscious mind going, I need to grieve right now, or I need to move emotion, like it doesn't happen. We've got to drop into our body and do these exercises to like start to move on a vibrational level. The language of the body is vibration.
Right? It is, absolutely.
And we've got to learn how to speak that language.
Yeah, and a lot of us don't have someone we can co-regulate with, unfortunately. And because of that, we have to get really good about sensing what's happening in our body ourselves. If we have someone good to co-regulate with, let's say a really healthy partner who's done his or her work and their nervous system, they're able to lend their nervous system, remember, like I said, and you could do that virtually, right? Because you essentially know, okay, this person I'm reaching out to, I work with, I feel comfortable. He's witnessed my emotions. He hasn't judged me. He feels safe. All you need is to get on the phone and all of a sudden your system remembers. And so for those of us that do have someone we can co-regulate with, then we can sit down and just have a conversation and start feeling emotional, right? All of a sudden, because we know our partner can hold it. We feel their groundedness. And this is the responsibility of a man, to be in his grounded masculine so that his partner can allow herself to express all of herself, right? She can feel that. Women are so good at sensing when a man is grounded or not. And women are really good at getting together with men who are ungrounded too, for some reason. So if we don't have that person to co-regulate with, then again, we have to be really good at meditating into our body and actually being with that tension that is appearing, and consistency is the key, visiting it all the time to let our body know I'm here with you. And whenever you want to process, I can hold it. That's it.
So for people listening that are like, this is what I need, this is the piece I've been missing, where do you recommend they start?
They can start with orienting themselves back to their body. And that can be literally just laying down with no guidance and actually just learning what it feels like to have feet, and actually feeling like what it feels like to have an ankle and your calf and your knee, right? Like some people, when I say, can you feel your right toe? They're like, I can't. Well, that's an interoception piece. Your interoception's really poor. I can right now feel it tingling right now because I brought awareness to it. But I visit it, like me and my toe have a good relationship, But what you can do that yourself. You can lay down. It only takes 7 minutes to close your eyes and actually feel, right? Feel what it feels like to be you, to have a body. But then if you need guidance, you could do something like a yoga nidra. You can do a YouTube somatic experience, But the most important thing and the first step is to orient yourself to your body. As you're doing this consistently and just being with, I don't need to know the story. I don't need to know when it started. I don't even need to know what emotion is here in my belly or chest or leg. I can just be with it. Then the body will go, okay, I'm starting to feel connection with you. Maybe I'll start processing something. And maybe one day you're with your body and all of a sudden you feel a little twist or a little just shake or a little juke in your body and you go, what's happening here? And then you're just still with your body. You don't think about anything. And then it feels like it's shaking a little bit more. And it starts kind of like just twisting and turning. What the hell's happening? That's your body beginning to process. The second thing is the breath and the sound. You got to have a relaxed belly. You got to know what it feels like to have a belly that's not sucked in. You got to know what it's like to make sounds from your belly, whether it's one sentence that you need to say to someone, whether it's singing from your belly back to healing that singing wound that everyone has, or just making sounds. Playing with your voice.
Everyone but Adele.
Everyone but Adele. She got the good one. So, right, so it's orienting yourself to the body, having your body trust that you're going to show up with it every day, paying attention to just where you feel in the body, checking it out every day, breath and sound, breath and voice. Those two things together, I'm telling you, it is 90% of the work. People will be able to come back to some potent healing. They're going to go, oh my God, I can't believe I'm so sad. I had no idea I was so sad. And they're still crying, but all of a sudden their asthma goes away. I had no idea why I was so angry. And all of a sudden their gut issues begin to get better. That's not by mistake. Oh my God, I have so much on my womb, but all of a sudden they get pregnant when they were quote unquote infertile. I've seen it happen with my own eyes, right? These are all beautiful things that can arise just by you giving your body the time of day.
It seems so simple, but it's so profound and we just need to practice it. Do you still get triggered or are you enlightened at this point?
No, I'm not enlightened. I'm far from it, and I promise you I'm not. There are things that I still know, but I know what happens in my body.
Yeah. When you get triggered, like something like really massive happens where there's just a flood of emotion and you could get, if you didn't have the awareness, you'd get ripped down the river of rage or like flustered or fear. What's your process to regulate your system?
My Achilles heel is in not expressing. First of all, 5-6 years ago, I had no emotion to express. I didn't cry when my mom died. I didn't cry for 13 years after she died, but I cried for 30 days straight when I let it come out. And then my asthma went away. I had asthma, adult asthma. Couldn't figure out why.
Which is interesting because lungs is
grief.
Yeah. Lungs is grief.
And there was a huge, massive layer of anger that I had to go through for myself and for people in my life, how I was treated, and that took a really long time because that was a big one. People pleasing, I've been recovering from it. But I have the awareness in my body, how it feels when I'm abandoning myself. When I abandon myself, my upper right belly gets tight and my throat gets tight. Always. Every time I abandon myself. Every time I say yes to something that is not true for me. But at least now my body talks to me and says, hey, buddy, we have a close relationship. I'm going to have you have the somatic experience so you know what's happening because you've connected it already. So then I go back and then I'll be like, oh, whoa, I did abandon myself. Where? And let me reclaim my power. But if something is really triggering to me, I know where to manifest. It's always in my belly. Nowhere else. Like, it doesn't happen in my chest. Like, I'm not sad when something's triggering. I get really frustrated, angry when something's triggering. Same. Right? So I know what works for me. What works for me? Myofascial release balls will actually help on the surface. It'll help get things warmed up. It'll thaw the ice of protection. Because I know, whoa, I have a lot of fire inside. And if that fire is coming up, it might not be good. That fire can destroy, like, I can be like, well, let's cancel everything. And I don't want anything to do with this.
Fuck
and
you.
say things, like it can happen. It's in me, just like it's in everyone else. But I know that if I'm holding it in and I've abandoned myself, I can use a myofascial release ball, use my breath and sound, and it'll start unthawing what's there. And then I can go to an anger release if I've held it in. The thing about it is this. I haven't done it in a long time because I haven't gotten to the place where I need an anger release because I haven't been holding in stuff. Because I've allowed myself to speak up for myself upstream from the anger. So I know when I'm abandoning myself and I haven't spoke up for myself, that anger's got to go somewhere. It's going to be in my upper right belly. And if I keep doing it, it's going to start building up. And if I keep doing it, it's going to start building up. And then my gut issues are going to get worse. And then when that one person triggers me, I'm going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to freak out, right? So I've preventatively, I've gone and done my prophylactic stuff by making sure anger is healthy. Anger is the thing that keeps us in our integrity. It says, hold on, here's a boundary and you crossed it. But if you can't speak up for yourself, that anger is going to build up. Not to say, I'm just remembering, there was a moment where I took on someone's anger in a healing. And I haven't really done that in a long time, but it's because I forgot to do clearing.
Protection, yeah.
I always protect and I have my things that I do and it always works. But I actually forgot to do it because it was a while since I've had a session. So I actually needed to do an anger release. I felt it. It felt like I was nauseous and I felt brain fog. And I know my body, when it's nauseous and brain fog, there's something that wants to come out. So I was at my girlfriend's house and God bless her nervous system and God bless her. She's like laying on her belly, just like sketching a beautiful anatomical figure of a woman, on her sketch pad.
As one's perfect girlfriend does.
And I'm just there like kind of tuning into my body because I know something's off. And I go, oh, no, I don't feel good. So I go, Claire, I feel like I need to release some anger. Are you cool with that? She goes, oh yeah, go ahead, do what you need to do. So I'm on her couch and I reach for the couch pillow and I start screaming into the pillow, like throwing up screaming from my belly. Yeah. And it comes up. And then it again comes up. It keeps coming. So it's a good 5-7 minutes where, and I look at her like between screams and she's just drawing.
Still sketching.
Yeah, she's sketching. But why? It's because she's seen a lot of her anger. She's not afraid of Christian getting angry. I'm not afraid of my partner getting angry.
She's not taking it personally.
Because she's not taking it. And look, if I was not in the somatic awareness and I took on someone's energy or someone got me mad, I might come home and I might take it out on her because I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to release it. Yeah. Or maybe I go to the gym and I get addicted to going to the gym, right? Or that energy of anger becomes sex addiction and I cheat on her all the time. Do you see what I mean? Like there's other unhealthy expressions, but because she knows that I'm not going to hurt her verbally or physically, of course not. And it's going to be released into the pillow. And then after that, I was like, all right, what's for dinner? Let's eat.
Yeah.
Boom, done.
Yeah. It wasn't mine. I just had to release it. Yeah.
So that's how I, when I'm triggered and I'm far from enlightened, I will feel myself triggered, but I know where it is in my body. I know what it needs.
And we just have to practice that attunement.
It's the attunement. Because if you don't know what you need, you will inevitably take it out on someone, your kids, your partner. You may compensate and all of a sudden overeat or over sex or over work. You'll do all the things except the healthy thing.
Oh my God, I could talk to you for hours, and I hope we do. Let's do this like again, once quarterly or something.
Cool.
Where can people find you?
Mostly on Instagram. It's Dr. Gonzalez. I have a website. It's under construction, but that's drchristiangonzalez.com.
Cool. Thank you so much. You're amazing.
Thank you so much.